Hello everyone, Jules here. Today I'd like to talk about a new Oracle deck that has just been published recently, and that is the Yggdrasil Norse Divination Cards. Here is the box, and this has been published very recently by Llewellyn Publications, and this has the god Odin on the cover. This Oracle deck has 81 cards, and it's an Oracle deck about the Norse pantheon. So it has gods and goddesses of the Norse pantheon, and also cards for some of the different concepts that are also connected with the Norse pantheon. And this deck was created by an artist who comes from Iceland, and this is a father and daughter team. The artist is Haukur Halldorsson, and his daughter is initial G, Hauksdottir. And I'm just going to get the first name for the daughter. The daughter wrote the book. Here is the guidebook. And I'll just find here the name of his daughter. And I'm having a bit of trouble finding. I know the initial is G, initial G. And I may try to find that later, but I know that the daughter, Haukur Halldorsson, is the artist, and his daughter wrote the book, the guidebook. Okay, here it is here. The daughter's name is Gunhilda Hauksdottir wrote the book, and her father, Haukur Halldorsson, did the artwork. And this is a great guidebook. I quite like the guidebook. There is information on each of the 81 cards and black and white illustration, and this is a black and white deck. So for example, here is the picture of the card and the name of the card, and then there is information about the god or goddess or the concept, and it also has the divination meaning as well. And at the front of the book, it mentions the 9 different worlds of the system. There's 9 different worlds, and there's 9 cards for each of the worlds. So the 81 cards are divided into the 9 worlds, and there's 9 cards for each of the worlds. And these are the worlds of Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil is also known as the world tree. So it's called the world tree, but it's also the idea of a universal tree. And it's a fascinating deck. I'm going to use this deck particularly for study. It could definitely be used as a divination deck, but for me, I'm going to spend a lot of time studying this pantheon and the concepts. And this deck, I've been connecting with this deck a lot more than what I expected to. I am finding quite a connection with this deck, and it has surprised me a bit. It has surprised me because I am aware of runes. I have been for a long time, but for some reason I haven't been particularly interested in the Norse pantheon before now, and now I'm really interested in this pantheon, and I am going to be studying this deck and working with this, and I'm going to also show a couple of other books as resources, but I've got other books and I'm going to be getting a lot more so that I can fully immerse myself into this pantheon and these concepts. So this has been a turning point for me, getting this deck. And the book is called Bifrost. And it's a good book. It's a good book because it's talking about each of the 81 cards, and also describes each of the 9 worlds. There is a 9-card spread for the world tree, or for Yggdrasil. There is a 9-card spread in here. I'm just going to find the picture for you. Here it is. It's sort of showing the placement for the cards for each of the 9 worlds of the Yggdrasil tree. And that is the goddess Freya on the cover, with one of her cats. So I'm going to show you some of the cards that I particularly like, and this will be a general idea of these cards. They're black and white cards, and I like that. I love black and white decks. Here is the back of the cards. It's got a great design on the back. And these are oracle card size. And the cards have been described on a couple of other videos as being a little bit thin, but I don't notice it, and it's because the cards have a good lamination on them. I think if the cards did not have that lamination, then, you know, they would probably seem thinner. But to me, I don't know. I don't notice it with these cards. I think it is to do with the lamination that's on the cards. They're a bit glossy, but I don't think they're too glossy. So I'll just start with showing you the great artwork. This is Odin, who is the main god of the overall god of the Norse pantheon. So this artwork is really well done. It kind of reminds me of etchings. So I really love the artwork. And I really love black and white decks. And I think this artwork looks better in black and white. I'm not one of these people who wishes that the deck was in colour. For me, I think the essence of these images look better in black and white. So I just think it would not be the same deck if it were not black and white. So Odin, and it has keywords at the bottom, and there is a symbol on each of the cards for each of the 9 worlds. So then you would know which of the 9 worlds of the Yggdrasil tree that these cards belong to. So Odin, Frigg, I just find these cards so fascinating. They're really interesting. Frey, and I don't mean only the pantheon, all of the concepts and philosophy connected with this Norse pantheon. So interesting. Frey, Freya, Elder. Thor. And there's this huge dragon. Here's Thor up here. Heimdall. Loki. Notice. I think this is pronounced Aja. Could be eager. But what fascinates me about this card is that it looks very much like Poseidon or Neptune. This is a giant sea god. So this one particularly caught my eye when I saw this. This is one a lot of people will know, Gandalf. Gandalf is one of the main figures in Lord of the Rings. So Gandalf. Idun. And the keywords on the cards describe the associated words and meanings and connections for these gods and goddesses. I really like this one, Frosty. There's a lot of symbolism too. You can see a lot of symbols on this card. There's a sigil. Or sigil type symbol there. I love this card, but I'm not sure whether it's myrrh or not with the pronunciation. And the keywords are creativity, novelty, and artistic struggle. A lot of people will know this one too, the rule of three. Quite a number of these concepts in the deck and in the book will seem familiar because the Norse pantheon was to do with Northern Europe, but of course it was brought into Britain by the Anglo-Saxons and the Vikings, or the Danes. So a lot of these concepts are familiar. The rule of three. I think this is pronounced Imna, the spirit of fire. This is Rita, the spirit of lightning. And I just thought I'd mention these borders too, because they are white borders and there's black titles on the cards. I don't notice the borders. I think it's because the artwork is taking up most of the card. So I don't look at these cards and think, oh, you know, I don't like the borders. I don't really notice the borders all that much. So that's the Spirit of Lightning, which is Rita. I like this one too. Modgud, the guardian of Gilabru. Gilabru. This is Nightfall, darkness and fog. Now, these next three cards I'm sure that people will recognise. This is Skuld, representing the past. So these are like the Norse version of the three fates in the Greek pantheon, or the moray in the Greek pantheon. So Skuld is the keeper of the past. These are the weavers. Urd, the present. And Verdandi, the future. And the last card I'm showing today, this is the crossing between life and death, Gilabru. I showed you the guardian of Gilabru, and this is Gilabru itself, the crossing between life and death. So there's some of the cards of the Yggdrasil Norse Divination cards. I'm going to show a couple of resources that I think would be really useful with this deck as well. So there's the box again, and this is the hard cardboard box with a metallic clasp, so it's a good box. And I am keeping my cards in a bag inside the box. I just want to talk about a couple of resources that I think would be really useful with this deck, that I'm finding useful. The first book is the Prose Edda by Snorri Sturluson. Now, this is an English translation of famous Prose Edda. The Prose Edda was written by Snorri Sturluson, who was an Icelandic scholar who lived in about the 12th century. And this was all written in one book originally, just called the Eddas. And this is what the Norse pantheon and the whole Yggdrasil concepts were all written down in the Eddas. And more recently, the Eddas have been separated into the Prose Edda, which is what this book is, the Prose Edda, and the second half is the Poetic Edda. I am recommending the Prose Edda to start with. The Poetic Edda is the poetry of the Edda in a separate book. That is interesting and quite beautiful. I am going to get that. I'm getting that soon. But I want to start with the Prose Edda, and I'm recommending other people do as well, because it gives a great background and structure to these gods and goddesses and stories and concepts. And I'll give you an idea of what's in this book. I think this is a great translation. It's a great book. It's translated by Jesse Byock. This is all about the world tree to start with. Here's a drawing of the world tree. So the first chapter talks about the world tree. It's also known as the Axis Mundi. And it talks about all of these different concepts all the way through the book, all the different gods and goddesses, and in an accessible way. There's a glossary at the back of all the different concepts and gods and goddesses, which is great, really handy. And there are also charts in here of all the different family trees of the gods and their offspring. So it's a really handy book. It's a great book to start with. So I really like this particular translation of the Prose Edda, and I will put the details below the video. This is quite easy to get, and it's a reasonable price for a very good paperback. So the Prose Edda, and the other book I'm recommending is one I've had for quite a long time, but I'm pretty sure it's still in print. And this is published by Llewellyn. The Prose Edda is published by Penguin. The Leaves of Yggdrasil by Freya Aswynn. I have had this book for a number of years. And the reason why I have this book is because it's about Norse magic and runes, but it's also about Yggdrasil, and the subtitle is Gods, Magic, Folklore, Feminine Mysteries, and Runes. It's a wonderful book. It's a great book, really accessible, I think, for people who just want to know more about the Norse pantheon, and especially if they want to know more about it from a magic perspective, but also all the background on these gods and goddesses. And one of the great charts in here, it actually shows the chart here of the 9 worlds, and they're all labelled and named, and there's a description for each. So this is a great book to get. I'm sure it would still be in print because it's been such a popular book. It's just so useful. The Leaves of Yggdrasil by Freya Aswynn. And I'm pretty sure that's Odin on the cover. So I'm recommending those two books to go along with this great oracle deck for the Yggdrasil Norse Divination Cards. And I'll put all of the details below the video, and I don't think I could say any more about this deck. I really love this deck, and I recommend it for anyone who is interested in the Norse pantheon and the Yggdrasil world tree and all of the Norse concepts that will actually seem quite familiar. So thanks for watching. Bye for now.